Okay, the blenders. We will do a very super fast intro to Blender with marimbas or whatever your imagination lets you see. Okay, you don't if you don't recognize a shape in a cloud inspires a shape in you in the same way this cube will inspire a shape in you, because the cloud itself or the cube has no shape. So whenever you're working with a 3D model in its initial stages, the same issue apply. You want the sphere or the cube to be something, but it could be so many things, and creation lies in this way in between your desires and the possibilities of the medium, or in this case, the cube. So we will start by growing an object from this cube, learning then some basic shortcuts of movement and edition, add detail with modifiers, duplicate objects, and then add materials, which are not to be confused with textures. So first, I call this the Brunelleschi experiment, but the Brunelleschi's cup experiment. First, we'll learn how to move in space. So Blender, all the shortcuts have to do with a middle mouse button. If you're using a trackpad on a Mac computer, there are apps to simulate a middle mouse click, but honestly, try to get a mouse with a middle mouse button. Okay, or a scroll wheel that you can press the button, because all the shortcuts for motion have to do with the middle mouse click. So if I just press the middle mouse click and move around, I rotate around the scene. If I press shift, hold shift, press and hold the middle mouse click, I can pan around the scene. If I press control and I middle click, I can zoom in or out. All of these motion moving around commands have to imply holding the key and holding the mouse click. So I'm holding control and holding the middle mouse click and moving around. Okay, this seems very simple, but it's very important to orient around the scene. If you somehow get lost in space like this, you press F. Sorry, you press that. That was a command from another object. You press view and you press frame selected, and then you can frame the object. Or view, frame all, and then you can see all of the objects. In this case, a camera, a light, and a cube. Other interface parts of Blender that are important: to the right, you have what is usually called an outliner. It has all the elements on the world here, which is a light, a cube, and a camera. Properties of the objects. So the cube, for instance, here are the properties: location 0, 0, 0, rotation 0, 0, 0, etc. Everything in 3D comes in threes. Up here you have visualization modes, these spheres that you see here, so that they change how things are seen. So wireframe allows you to see transparently, but usually we're going to work here in viewport shading mode. Now, you can do, you have this cube, you can move this cube, you can rotate the cube, or you can scale the cube. These controls are here, but the shortcuts are G for grab or move, S to scale, and R for rotation. Notice that you're moving in relation to the camera view in this case. If you want to move in relation to the axes that you have there, the coordinate system, I can press G, for instance, that stands for grab, and press Y, and it's going to move on the Y axis. Z is going, or Z is going to move on the Z axis, which in Blender is the vertical axis, and X is going to move on the X axis. By default, you sort of want to have X as the horizontal axis. What else? You have this beautiful colored thing here. If you press Y, it's going to give an orthographic view of the Y axis. Same with X and Z. Anyway, again, I'm rotating. I want to move the cube. I press G, I press Z. I can move around in that relation. If I middle mouse click on one of the axes, I can also move it around in that way. Okay, enough with moving the cube. Now, if I press the tab key, notice how this thing here changes. Right now we're in object mode, but I'm pressing the tab key and I'm in edit mode. That means I can manipulate the components of the geometry, which in a cube or any mesh are first the vertex or vertices, which are points in space. Then if I have two vertices and I hold shift, I can select two vertices. I am holding a line. If I press and select three vertices, I'm holding a plane, okay, or a face. You can see that they even change. The same controls for motion apply. If I press G, I can move this around. But if I press R on a vertex, it doesn't rotate because vertices don't rotate. If I press S, it doesn't happen either. But if I have two vertices, I can press R for rotation and S for scale. But what is being changed, what is scaling, is the relation between vertices, because that is a line. A line is a relation between two or more. It's like a family between two or more vertices. If you want to change what is your selection, you can press in the buttons here. So you can select vertex, line, or face. I'm going to select the face here. Now, you have these components that we briefly saw in class. There are things that you might, like, seriously don't do that. Like taking this vertex and doing this cruel thing of extruding it inwards, so you're showing you're basically showing the face inside out, which is not gonna. It's a great movie, but it's not gonna work well for geometry. So try to avoid doing that. I'll press 3 now here to select this face. I can move the component here, kind of cool. But I can also do stuff with geometry besides moving, right? I can generate geometry. All of these shortcuts are here, things that you can do with specific components. So if I press on extrude region and I drag on that little plus sign, I am generating from that face, I am growing more geometry. Think of it like a fungus. And I can do stuff with that geometry that has to do with what I can do with an object. So I can press S and I'm scaling it down. I can press E to extrude, that is the shortcut. Press S to scale it up. I can press E and scale it up again. I can press E to scale and press S to scale it down, and G to grab it and move it upwards. So yes, now we have something reminiscent of a light stand. No, it's not a mushroom. And I extrude this one here. So you can grow a lot of stuff like that. Again, I'm gonna go with pressing tab into edit mode. You can hold on the edit mode and do different kinds of extrusions. For instance, extrude individual. If I have many faces selected and I press this, it's going to extrude them individually. So now it is more of a contemporary lamp, but I'm gonna leave it as it was before. Cool, so we have the lamp, or any other shape you want. You can use this to make whatever you want. Now we go into object mode. If I press Shift D and I drag around, I will duplicate this. Now this is a good point for pressing Y so that I'm moving this along one axis. And I told you that it wasn't a mushroom, but it could be. So I'm pressing S to make it smaller. I'm gonna press the X key there, and I'm gonna drag this one over here. And I'm going to press Shift D and move it around. Actually, I'm not gonna press Shift D, I'm going to press Alt D or Command D. And this is going to make an instance, which is something that we didn't do in class, but you'll see where it goes. I'm going to modify this a little bit. I'm going to press E. And yeah, this is kind of nice. You see it's modifying the other ones as well, because when you're working with instances, which is a way to copy an object, you're working with sort of like a doppelganger of the first object you selected. Again, to make an instance of an object, you select the object and you press Option D or Alt D if you're using PC. Now I'm going to check the modifier, add a modifier, and add modifier, generate subdivision surface, right click, shade smooth. These ones, they don't have the subdivision surface because I need to apply it. And because modifiers are a bit of a different kind of object, but again, generate subdivision surface, generate subdivision surface. And I will add a bit more detail. Subdivision surfaces is like a classic method for modeling. It allows you to work with a very low resolution original model that is not very intensive to make very big changes. So as you can see, here I am in edit mode and I can see like this higher detail model, but at the same time I have this other model here. If you're wondering how am I selecting like a ring of objects, that is by pressing Command and holding Command key. I select the loop that is called a ring or loop, and I can sort of simply make certain changes. So now, even though these shapes are the same-ish, this one, I'm trying to make this one look a bit more organic, right? More mushroomy. Good. Once we like how it looks, I can press, here I have this modifier and I can press apply. Or the shortcut for that is Control A or Command A if you're using a Mac. And I can add another modifier that I encourage you to play with here, such as generate wireframe, thickness, and then press apply. And now we have here a special kind of object. If you want to make it a bit more realistic, we can also add another modifier, which is called bevel, which makes it a bit more natural. And if you add segments, it's going to look nicer. Great, so now we have bevels and we have these mushrooms. Now, this is sort of a summary for the class, right? I will add another shape. Sorry that I didn't tell you how to, did I do that? I press add, I'm in object mode, I press mesh and I press plane. That gives me a plane, which I need to make a bit larger. And then I select different mushrooms, press G, press Z. I take this one here, I push this up. I might want the mushrooms to be a bit more natural looking and different sizes. Good. But that brings us to materials. Okay, so this is stage 2, which we're gonna make it again kind of fast. Right now, every object has one material and you cannot see the materials when you are in viewport shading mode. So you need to click on that sphere that has some sort of checkerboard pattern. Pressing this button to the right, and then you can see properties of visualization. I will check on scene lights, and I will change my background image so that it looks more sunny. So that one seems fine. I can change the rotation. So that looks sort of good. World opacity makes the background visible or invisible, but now it's blurry, so I'll take down the blur. Ooh, this is kind of appropriate. And now we can work with materials. So I will select the ground to give you an example, and materials are on the rainbow menu. We go here. Materials is that sphere that has a checkerboard pattern, but it is a transparent sphere. This object doesn't have a material, so we press on new. And we'll make the ground be, just for schematic purposes, we're gonna make it kind of grassy. And here we have a bunch of properties that are important. Metallic, roughness, index of refraction, that's only for transparent stuff. Alpha is translucency. So roughness, if we put it to 1, it's very rough. If we put it to 0, it reflects everything. So great for water, for instance. And here color changes the color, kind of logical. And here I'm going to make a new material for the mushroom. So material, I select the mushroom and it shows me the material that it has, which is not the one I want. I press plus, I press new. It's gonna say material 2. I go to material, I press minus, and I'm going to double click here and says toad, just for, you know, which mushroom, the Mario, the Nintendo mushroom. And surface, change color, and I'm gonna make it red, on a part at least. And here I can go into material and press toad. Here press toad. And I can change the parameters, right? So I can make them rougher because it's a mushroom. I will get rid of the material here. So press minus on this new one, press new material. I'm gonna call this tower. And I'm gonna make it kind of dark. I'm gonna make it metallic so that it simulates metal, and I'm gonna make it not that rough. So now we have a metal object and the mushrooms. The mushrooms I might need to work with some other properties, and I might wanna make a mushroom made out of glass, for instance. So I will press minus, I will get a new glass object, glass toad. And transmission, I'll bring up the weight. So now it sort of looks glassy, but it won't work as glass unless you go into settings, go down, 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 and you check on ray traced refraction transmission. If you don't check on that, it won't really work. You also need to go into render properties, which is this camera tab, and check on enable ray tracing. And now it does have, this is for Blender 4.2, but now it does have some similitude to glass. I can also generate another, modifiers are amazing, okay? So this is glass and it's solid, but I might want to press on solidify. Didn't make a big difference. Anyway, anyways, more things about the materials here. If I check on subsurface, it says random walk, and I can make, this is great for organic stuff. So I will do 1. And you might notice that it says radius and it has 3 radiuses. That is the color. So I'll dial up the scale. And you see that the shadow, when I'm dragging this out, the shadow becomes like, it has more light, because organic objects tend to be semi-translucent. If I dial down the radius to 0, it won't have that. Now, if I turn the radius on this one, it will have a color, but it's not going to be, it shouldn't be red. But I guess I can demonstrate it this way. This gives a green, this is a green, like green tincture to the shadows, and this is a blue tincture to the shadows. So normally you want this to be like something like this. And now it's looking peachy. Roughness, I might be able to, yeah, add some roughness like that, and that is good. So that is very simply what happens with lights and subsurfaces and things here. I am moving a light here. I do remind you to name the objects. So this is going to be called Toad, Toad 2, Glass Toad. That's just by double clicking on the objects, because now they don't look like cubes anymore. Like, you know, when you grow up and you don't want adults to call you children names, like nicknames. So don't do that with whatever you make. Toad Tower. And finally, but not least, the difference between that we saw in class very briefly, that materials shouldn't be confused with textures, right? And we said that with a Taylor Swift, but we need to add a texture here, and textures can come out of basically anything. I'll briefly look out for a texture here. So here I Googled grass texture. Let's do Mario BU, but I guess it works. What about this one? Okay, I'll use this one that is kind of crappy, and it says Shutterstock, which is not great, but whatever. I'll just put it into the desktop, and then I'm going to show you how to add an image as a texture. So you're going to base color, and notice that I'm doing this with the plane. Planes are very easy to texture. So you're going to base color, and you have this dot to the left, this yellow one. Press on that dot, and it gives you options of different textures that you can use. For instance, you can use brick texture, and you have a brick texture, which is great. Or you can do magic texture, which is quite trippy. All of these are called generative, like generative textures. You can change a lot of parameters with, or parametric textures. You can do a lot of trippy stuff here. But for images, you want to use one that's called an image texture. So I click on image texture, and it gives me the option to either make a new texture or open one. So I can press on open. And I have this Shutterstock image here. I will press on that icon so I can see what I was doing. And it's styling and everything. Here's that image. So now I have mushrooms and everything, which is kind of cool. So that's it for now. Textures can go into different channels too. If I, for instance, check on this mushroom and it has roughness there, I can go into the roughness, into the left dot, press here, go up, and use a noise texture for to drive the roughness, and that way, as you can sort of see now, I can add sort of fake details. So I will do a texture like this, not very rough, and with a lot of detail. No distortion. And that way the mushrooms don't have they have a bit of more of a natural texture, which is quite useful. So that's it for now. I hope it's useful. It's a 25-minute intro, but with this you sort of should know everything. Bonus point. If we have seen object mode and edit mode, but if you go into sculpt mode and you just start pushing around, that's another way to push geometry. Which is based on objects. So I can go here into sculpt mode and start making some stuff around. There are some very fun brushes, such as that grab brush. If I press F, I make this brush larger, and then I can move stuff around and make it more organic. Or this one, I love it, the inflate brush. Not that great. There's something wrong with that mushroom, but beautiful. I hope with this you can like get started with learning some stuff from Blender. See you soon in class for the physics tutorial.